ahead and get started with the work session. Just basically want to go over some stuff with you on the agenda, but I asked Doug Hatton to come and talk to us, and Doug, I may get you to stay after Tim gets in our regular meeting at 6 o'clock and kind of go over this again. But if you would, go ahead and just talk to us about what you and I had lunch last week with Tim and Matt and Greg. We appreciate you coming up here tonight to speak to us. And, if you would go ahead and I'll let you just have the floor.
All right. Simply put, is what we're doing is working with the fire department on establishing or maintaining the public protection classification, which is what we call ISO, the Insurance Service Office. The homeowner's insurance or property insurance, fire insurance premiums are based in part on what classification, public protection classification the jurisdiction has. And that's been in place for years and years and years. I've worked with departments from one end of the state to the other for the last 30 years doing this. I don't work for ISO in any way. I don't represent them in any way. I just consult with fire departments on it. What we do is take the fire suppression rating schedule that the insurance industry used to grade cities and fire departments with. We go through that grading schedule, compare the present situation of the fire department, and make recommendations on either how to stay in the classification you're in or how to reduce that classification better. Just for rough comparison, you're in a class 4 right now. The classes are from 1 to 10. The 10 is nothing, 1 is the best. You're in a class 4, which is excellent for this size department. What that really means, and bottom line, is it's about a 50% reduction in homeowners insurance rate by being there versus up to a class 9 or 10. So it's well worth the effort you put into it to keep the classification there or better. Significant change comes from 6, 5, and 4 classes. Below that, it gets a lot of savings in the industrial type stuff or commercial. The homeowner gets the biggest savings in that class 4 range. But anyway, you're there, and what we're going to do is look at the criteria and to see where you are today based on the change in city limit lines and population and all that. In addition to that, this July, the ISO is changing the suppression schedule that they use to grade everybody in the country with for the first time in 35 years or something like that. So it's going to be a major change. They're modernizing, coming up to the new technologies and things, and so that's going to have an effect on everybody that's great. What Chief Fry's asked me to do is look at everything and see what we need to start looking toward when these changes do come into effect. I don't think anybody's going to walk in the bar and say, hey, we're going to re-rate you. But the standard to operate right now is they re-rate every 15 years. If you make improvements between that time, the mayor may make a request for them to come in and reevaluate at any time. But they won't come back uninvited, or generally don't, for 15 years. The last rating was in 99, I think, wasn't it? So it's not too far away for that. Quite honestly, I don't think they will be in right at that point of time. But this gets you a report out there as to where you stand today. We will base our recommendations on the new standard that's coming out in July. And we look at the fire department, all the equipment in the fire department, training, personnel, all those issues there. We look at the water department, how well the water is provided to fight fire with. They look at the 911 communications center. All 3 of those are the broad categories they look at. Major changes are coming to the dispatch center and to the fire department. The water is going to be about the same, but there's a lot of changes coming in there. Some of it's going to be a little easier to comply with, some of it's going to be harder. But what we'll do is put together a proposal or a package to say, here's where we think you are today, and what you need to do to maintain the class that you're in, and some suggestions if you want to go try to drop on down to a 3. But I've done this for many years now, and worked for about everybody from one end of the state to the other.
So you'd be familiar with what ISO would recommend. Maybe
Yeah.
you're gonna recommend something to us if we go in contract meeting. And then when ISO were to come in, or if they come in, you would pretty much be in line with what they would want.
We will use their ISO suppression rating schedule. We'll go step by
So you'll
step
go
through
with
it.
what they would suggest.
We'll look at each of the categories they look at. Some of it we'll throw out and say we can't do anything about it. You know, it's just too expensive to go there. Some of it is simple things we can do. So we look at each category that they're going to grade in that schedule and make recommendations based on where I feel like they will, we can pick up points, or where you're going to lose points if you don't change something. But yes, it'll follow the new guidelines that they're putting in, as well as NFPA the fire prevention codes, or fire protection codes.
Will you first look at getting the entire city of 4?
Yes, we will look at that. Now, there's some creative, there's some stuff, some work to be done. That's one of the areas that they talk about in the schedule. It's called distribution, but it's basically how well you distribute your fire forces around town to have a reasonable response time. In those areas that's beyond 5 road miles of the existing station is just not going to change until the stations change. That's just, but we do look at where the stations need to be. If you decide you don't want to, that's fine. If you want to build stations, here is the best location for the point value, is all I look at, is the point value from it. And that would be a major first step, yes, to look at how to get the entire city within the class 4. And you do have some areas that is not.
Yeah.
But
Does the population have anything to do with these ratings?
not directly. They want to know what the population is. It is based on the ability of the fire department to handle structure fires. They don't grade you based on medical cause or wildland fires or hazardous material, even though that's a major part of the fire department now. Your grade comes from structure firefighting. And so that's all we look at in this. The chief and I will get off to the side and talk about other things that may help and run hand in hand with this. But all we look at is their suppression schedule, and then it's structure firefighting. From the training to the equipment necessary to water supplies and communications. And like I said, a lot of that spatial communication overlaps with the other jobs that they're doing now. But the grading comes only from the suppression side.
Water supply might be based on the size of water lines or hydrants, how many hydrants we
Yes.
have.
Everything, the number of
Water pressure.
hydrants, the pressure, the number of hydrants, the size of water mains. Basically, we go out to different sites around town and we do flow tests to see what is needed. There's formulas to determine if that building's on fire, how much water do I need to fight, or how much water does he need to fight a fire in it. And then we compare that need with what's available in the water system. And we'll work with the water department on before we go out and do anything like that. As a matter of fact, they'll probably want to go with us to do the tests and things like that.
So you work with the water department getting those assessments.
Oh, I work with the water department and we'll schedule all our tests and stuff around the way they want to do the tests. We don't go out there and start opening up hydrants without their permission. And we'll work with the 911 director as well as the board, the 911 on upgrades and things. I know they're working on some stuff already. So we're three broad categories: water, fire, and communication. And we'll look at all 3 of those and compare them with the new standards that ISO is publishing, and give you a written report of our recommendations, and then Chief and I will work on as we need to how to implement those technologies.
You did well
I
talking
can
over
say-
there. Yeah.
You think a former glass man fix their windows, they wouldn't. Every time somebody comes up and down that street, it rattles everyone in one thing. They're just shaking, vibration. That's what it is, the glass.
But right now, we're at 4/9.
4/9, what that means is anything within 5 road miles of your present station and within 1,000 feet of a standard fire hydrant will be a class 4. Everything else in 5 miles will be a class 9. Everything beyond 5 miles will be a class 10. whether it's inside city limits or not.
Difference in insurance premium between a 4 and let's say a 5 or 6 would be what, 10-20%?
Yeah, generally between a 6 and a 4, it's 18 to 20% savings. Roughly from a 9 to a 4 is about 50% cut. So you got about 10% increments there. That's not exact, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. So from 6 to 4 would be roughly 20%.
Well, how long would it take you to do the study?
Oh, what I got in proposal is 60 days out when I get through. Yeah, it don't take that long for me to do the work. What it boils down to is I come in and spend some time with the chief and the water department and folks, gather the information, go back and plug it in and play with it and see which is the cheapest way to get the points. It's a point scale, it's a point system. And some things we can't do, Just, if you could do everything in the book, you'd be a class 1. You won't be able to do everything in the book. So we simply look at the most point value for the least amount of money. And there is some things that can be done for a little method. There is some things that cost money to get additional points with. So when we get through, you'll have a report that gives where I think you are right now and a list of recommendations to maintain that or to go to the user classification. Don't mean you have to do that, but it simply means you've got a guideline, and when they do start looking at him, down the road here shortly.
What would be our advantage to go ahead and get them started versus waiting? If we go ahead and get started, you give us an idea of what we might be prepared for when ISO comes in. It might be a year from now.
That's correct. When they come in,
we could go ahead and be making some changes, getting ready for them if we knew ahead of time.
That's correct.
Is that the advantage?
That's the biggest advantage is it's like planning anything else. You've got your plan together and working toward what you expect them to find. If we identify it up front, you have the time to start working on it. The presence code allows them to come in and give you a grade, and then they don't bother you for 15 years, maybe 18 years or more. Under the new codes, it will be every 3 to 5 years. So it's a constant load on the fire chief to keep this information up to date and current and fed to them, so they won't end up having a full-blown survey. And again, those rules are changing, and they don't even have the final draft of it published yet, but it will go into effect in July unless something changes. I've got a copy of the draft, and it's pretty straightforward the way they're going to do it. I think I may be tweaking a little bit along the way, but generally I think they've got it down where they want it. But yeah, if you have the plan together right now, you know where the weaknesses are going to be, if there is any, and you know what to work on before these guys show up, before they start asking for new information.
This is probably very elementary, but does the size of the lines make any difference? We've heard some talk, or I have, about the size of water lines and putting in new bigger lines, and larger lines. Does that make any difference as far as the water? Do they look at that?
Yes, ma'am. They look at the water system from let's take a drop of water in the lake or the well, and then they look at how it comes from that position all the way out to the fire hydrant at the building that's on fire. So everything inside, from the water mains to the water tanks, pumps, and all that is graded in this process. So they do look at that. The size of water mains is critical, especially in your developing industrial areas and apartment complex or shopping malls and things like that. It's in the city's interest to get larger lines put in while the developer's putting that in and building that, rather than coming back later 3 or 5 years from now and getting hit with low flows around that. But most reputable dealers or construction folks are putting that kind of stuff in. But yes, the water lines is a significant part of the grading. And we don't look at every water line in town. We look at the test sites, generally 15, maybe 18 different sites around the entire city. And we do flow tests at those sites and just get a relative sample of what the water's doing. And we can make recommendations for those specific sites.
And you just said the training of the firemen plays a big part into it.
Yes, this new
Document, there's certain things that got to be trained in that they take into account, or is it just the general training or specialized training, or I know it's broad, but
yeah, it is the grade that ISO is going based on is structural firefighting. So the way they document and the classes they do in structural firefighting is what they will be graded on there. Now, there is a lot of specialized training, the rescue, hazmat, all this kind of stuff goes, they've got to do it. I mean, that's just part of the world.
Well, they look
But
at that? Look at all that?
They don't give grade based on rope rescue or water rescue or hazardous materials and things like that. They give credit based on structural firefighting.
I see.
So basically, he's got a challenge to try to keep up with all the training to meet the different categories that they got to work in. And then to meet this separate category of the structural firefighting is that they're going to grade you. Basically, a separate set of records to keep it simple, where they can grade him, give him maximum credit for structure grades, and allow him to go on and train in the other categories that he's got to meet. But, you know, water is a big part of it. Water is 40% of the grade, the fire is 50% of the grade, and your communications is 10%. So, what you'll have when you get through is a kind of a roadmap or a plan to take your time and develop and work toward the improvements in it, or to maintain where you're at or to grow.
Not gonna have 3 years to get ready for this as 6 months.
Exactly.
One of the new codes that they are implementing was a code that was adopted 5 years ago by NFPA. And it basically was a code that come about because the leagues of municipalities and the county commissions and folks like that got together on one side, and the fire suppression folks got together on the other, and standardized response times and things of that nature. Well, that give a 3-year data collection time before any of that code goes into operation, for the fire department to start building a database to tell us how well they're responding and complying with the times. So now it's here, that code is what's driving the response times in the fire department now. So basically they've set a national standard to say you should be able to have a fire truck at a fire scene in X amount of time to say 90% of your calls. And that's what, instead of saying you need one every 2 or 3 miles down the road, now you need it where it can be at a structure fire within a specific time frame. That is going to be big, I think, for a lot of people. It's going to be hard to meet. But yeah, we simply put together your plan to see where you're at and where you need to, where you want to go. If anybody's interested, you can talk to Florence, Gunnersville, Scottsboro, Russellville, Hamilton, Haleville, Winfield, Ewing, Fairhope, Fulton. Anybody in North Alabama you want to talk to, I've worked with at some point.
And you've done this for how many years? Because I remember you from last time I was there. You do this for...
I've been doing it for, I've been in fire service 40 years. And I've been doing this about,
You did hours when I was here.
Yeah.
20 years.
I did it when we dropped to a class 4. I wrote the plan that we went from a 7, I believe we went from a 7 down to a 4 when we wrote it the last time. So, I've been doing it for a while, and you know, I'll do what I tell you I'll do. That's all I can say.
We may get you to do the same thing here in a few
All right.
minutes.
I'd be glad to. I think whether it's me or it's a wise choice to go ahead. You got a new chief, you got new rules coming into effect that's going to affect a lot of people. And it's just a great idea, no matter whether it's fire or anything else, to look at what those changes are going to do to the city and be prepared for it. And this simply is a tool to help you get prepared for what's going to come. Any other questions?
Sorry, those ones are.
These
Go sit
guys
in there
over
and
here,
stop.
they know everything, that's why Tammy and I were going to ask. They know.
The agenda, y'all and copies of the minutes. Well, I had the one you sent, I didn't have one in my box, but,
You want one? Here you go.
I got it.
Okay, you want a copy? Okay.
You know, sign some minutes, maybe,
We need to. Get them caught up.
Turns in your bag.
Did y'all, had a chance to look over the agendas, any questions before we go in there? A couple of these things we may need to go into executive session and talk about. If there's anything on there now that you want to bring to my attention.
Do you have the difference in, the changes in the building
First,
code ordinance
I do
names
not,
and
Tammy, I
prices?
just saw that on there. Got all about that, because we didn't do it last time. Let me see. Yeah, I'll tell you what, if you want to, we'll just do that the next one. It ain't gonna matter 2 weeks from now. I've got, did we send you a copy of the new?
The new one, I just want to
Okay.
know the difference in the new and the old.
It's not that much as far as,
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
the changes in the new building ordinance.
The prices.
We went from,
Yeah.
is there one Pacific on there?
I just wanted to know the difference. Oh, I'm sorry. What is the old one?
The 100, the power was for 100, and it's now 50. Or would be 50 when we get it approved, so much per square foot, I think was a quarter, and I think it now proposed to be 15 cents. Say you build a 2,000 square foot house, 15 cents would be $300.
Is that also gonna change the fees and
Do what?
is that also gonna change the fees?
Fees, and then some of the exemptions changed. There's several more exemptions, on there that wasn't before. I think there's been a misconception about, you have to get a permit to do everything. It's not actually, it's more for new houses and any addition that, requires moving the meter box and spending $10,000.
It might be before the next meeting, maybe
I might.
get a sort of a highlight, a summary that,
Yeah,
And then
and
you
I'm
give it
sorry I
last
don't
week
have
it-
that. I let that slip
We
my
can
mind. I meant to do that. But we can do it the next one if you want to, and that'll give me time to get that Dutch back and roll. I apologize for that.
we can publicize that, some of those
Because I
highlights.
want people to know that you don't have to get a permit for everything you do in your house. You can change your windows out, put your floor covering in, no permit needed. You can change the roof, put a new shingles on your house, no inspection, no permit needed for that. We tried to make it easier and simplified that you don't have to, I think the misconception was people had to spend $2,000 or $3,000 for permits and stuff, and that's not true. I mean, a 2,000 square foot house at 15 cents is $300, plus the $50 for power, it's $350. And that's about 3 or 4 inspections, that's including the footings, coming in before they do the drywall, make sure electrical plumbing's right, coming in afterward, then one final. So, I mean, it's up to y'all. If you want to wait, we can wait. It's not critical. We've waited 6 months, so 2 more weeks ain't gonna matter that much. And I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me. I don't want to give my copy. The others on here, let's see. We're not going to do number 6, which is striping the main road, Bedford Park. Lynn's working on that for me. We may do something else there and get a different bid, maybe a different company, and do more than just in Bedford Park. The reason I put that on there was really for discussion. Buccaneer asked, they're going to be moving there in about a month, and that road is not striped, but it would be better if it had some definition to it. It is pretty wide. It's really wider than 2 lanes. You might have a center lane in part of it where they turn into certain areas. So we can, Lynn knows somebody that might with the county, or was it, what'd you say, with the state?
We got a count, we
Got a county
we get
bid.
an annual bid on striping,
It'd be less than this probably.
and we have a per mile rate is a lot less but you also got a minimum threshold to make as far as the amount of cash value.
But there are some other streets, I noticed, Steel Street is pretty, it needs a stripe or something. Y'all know when you drive up down that road, there's no center line, there was at one time, but it looked like it's painted with paintbrush, and it don't work. We need something better.
Just the regular paint usually lasts over 5 years.
And this thermoplast would last for, it may not ever, the road will not.
I just asked, you know,
Yes.
keep the difference
Yeah.
for us, so we could.
Waverly.
In the Waverly
Yeah.
case.
Do it
Well, they're redoing that whole building, they've been working on it for a few months, but they haven't moved yet. But they're in the process, getting ready to get.
Well, I can't find that.
I didn't know.
I didn't know it was 6 o'clock.
So we're gonna wait on 7,
We can.
this,
Yeah,
the building thing.
yeah. We sure can. Pretty well.